So we have a little treat for you, and I'm gonna ask Marita to come up here. She's all the way from Ventura, California. Let's give her a great big hand. And she really wanted to share with you guys this morning, so I'm gonna give her that opportunity to share.
I'm uncomfortable, but I'm here. I'm here to give honor to whom honor is due. First of all, I want to give honor to our Father. And I'm going to try to do this without crying. He's just wonderful. Last year, I attended this wonderful conference, and my friend Janet invited me. Last year, I was bankrupt, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. My beautiful daughter had graduated from one of the most prestigious Christian schools in the area, high honors, was going to this wonderful university, met someone who became very abusive, turned her into drugs. First it was depression, Prozac, Zoloft, whatever worked. Ended up taking, what was that, Jen? Oxycontin. My husband had been in the car business for almost 30 years. We were financially bankrupt because of the economy. We lost property. Physically, I was a mess. The stress caused me to gain weight, around my stomach. I felt horrible. I was on medication for, I don't know what, I can't remember anymore. But spiritually, I was getting tired. I was on my knees every day, and I wasn't seeing things changed. So Janet calls me. She says, Marita, let's go. And at that time, it was like, whatever. I said, Janet, I don't know if I can afford it. So Janet says, I'm going to pay for your ticket, and I'm going to pay for your room. I said, okay. Praise God for Janet. So I get here, and I don't know if you remember this, but we were late. I walked in, and I was such a mess that I was introduced to Annette, and she says, registration is free, you're my guest. And I just fell on her arms and started crying, because that was another gift that the Lord was giving me. Conference started. Every speaker spoke right into my soul. Dr. Leaf just changed the way I thought. Sylvia prayed for me. Angela prayed for me. They might not even remember. But I was so hungry to meet strong women who had made it that I went and told my story to everyone. Pray for me, pray for my daughter. God has a plan for her life, but I can't do this alone. I need women who don't know me to pray for me, because my friends were getting tired of praying for me. So I met this awesome, wonderful woman. She spoke, and the Lord said, go talk to her. There's an assignment for you with her. This weekend, I am conceiving something between both of you. So I took the courage. After she spoke, I went and talked to her. I shared with her what the Lord had told me. Mind you, I was a mess. I didn't know how this was going to happen, but I was obedient. So Betty spoke, and I talked to Betty, and she'll probably tell you what happened later. But throughout the year, I picked up the books, I read. I was accountable to myself, because I just didn't want to tire my friends. Janet would not answer the phone, and she'll tell you, yeah, that's Janet, but I love her. And so I was accountable to myself. God was with me the whole time. But then I remember all the women that had put a little bit into my life on that weekend. You were my inspiration. So I want to honor Annette for just having the courage to put out this conference. I want to honor all the women that spoke here because you made a difference in my life. And even this weekend, you know, I've already learned so much from Kimberly, from Dr. Lephiew. I mean, Hebrews 12:1 became so alive in me. You know, I always suspected there was a connection between the brain and faith. She clarified that, so I'm excited. I'm going to go home and tell my husband about it. You know, so many other women that have already spoken into my life. I'm ready to go back and take that and grow again. Let me tell you, financially, Betty introduced me to a new business. I'm just so excited about it. I am going to be the next millionaire. We've already said it. That project that the Lord conceived a year ago in this conference was birthed this weekend in this conference. Wow. Betty will probably tell you about it. It was a wonderful year. I have a new family now. Through the project, Betty, she doesn't know, but she became my new mom and my mentor. And Patsy became my new sister, my white sister. So I want to encourage every woman who's here to go home and start praying and asking the Lord, who can you bring this next year? Next year, this weekend, I paid for my trip, for my registration. Next year, I'm bringing someone. I'm paying for someone. Okay? There are so many empty chairs here. I want you to take a chair and say, I am bringing someone to sit there. And you know, there's so many of us here, we're probably going to need more tables. But just, you know, if you are a mature mentor, think about the difference that you can make on people. If you are bankrupt like I was, start making plans for next year because God is going to do an awesome thing with you from all this teaching this weekend. It's just been wonderful. And again, I just want to give honor to Annette for starting this whole thing. Thank you.
What an exciting day today is. This is the day that the Lord has made. For you and for me. And He has some plans this morning that we can't even conceive of how He wants to speak to us and how He wants to touch our hearts. We've had so many people this lovely weekend who have spoken something different than what they expected. They came with one thing, and God gave them a new message. And I want to honor Yvonne, for something that, the gift that she has, that perhaps we don't even understand the freedom God has given all of us because of who she is. You know, somebody who is a real controlling kind of person who puts a seminar together. It's like when they say 20 minutes, they mean 20 minutes, and you better have a canned something that at the end of 20, you're done. Annette has a wonderful, airy way of living her life. She kind of flies and lights here and there. We know that, don't we, Joe? I mean, what do we say? That I'm that way too sometimes, so I really relate to who she is. But, you know, if you're controlling, you lose the freshness. And this needs to be a place where there's fresh bread every year. Fresh bread, fresh manna. Don't we want that? We're hungry for that. We don't want to go have day-old stuff. So last year, when I was here, Marita touched on it, and I brought up my books because last year was a wonderful miracle for me. Annette had asked me to speak. I've been a trainer for many years, been on stage training, but had never gotten up and spoken. And so she and Joe believed God was saying for me to come and speak. So that was the first time I had ever done it. It was very exciting for me. And I had just launched a book, and I had gotten it the weekend of the conference. I hadn't even seen it until I got here. So it's called I Want What She's Got. Secrets of Creating an Outrageous Life. And I'm 74 years old. I have an incredibly outrageous life. But after I spoke that morning and we put our books out, the next morning we came in and Janet came up and she said, God spoke to Marita to please take your book and translate it into Spanish. Well, my book wasn't even 24 hours old. So, I just stood there and cried. Only God. I wasn't looking for a translator. I just had a book. So, the wonderful miracle that God can do when we allow Him. Every day for months I've been praying, what would you have me bring when I have an opportunity to speak to this group? And there's several things that are on my heart. One, recently, I had an opportunity to hear Brendan Bouchard, who is a new young trainer, a new person on the scene, kind of like Tony Robbins, except he's doing a little different focus. But as I read his book, The Millionaire Messenger, he had three things right in the very first chapter that have stuck with me, and I just keep mulling these things over because there are three things we all need to ask ourselves. The first one is, have we lived? The second is, have we loved? And the third is, did we matter? We made a difference. Did we matter? So at the end of our life, we need to ask that, but why wait till you're at the end of your life to ask? Why not start right now? Do you live? Do you love? Do you matter? And the thing that, as I've just been kind of ruminating on it, do you know, when I was young, a young mother even, I didn't live. I had 5 children. I have 7 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, but I didn't live. I didn't know I wasn't living, but I look around sometimes at some of the teenagers who kind of hang on the sides, and they are a little afraid to be who they'd like to be. A little kid, he runs around and jumps, and just like Joe was saying about grandkids, how wonderful they are. Boy, they can just give themselves to life. And then there comes a time when they kind of, they don't really want to be noticed. It's like, it's not so much about shy as it is not engaged. I'm not sure where I'm standing. That's giving me some feedback up here. So how important is it for us to be engaged?
Come on now.
Every day.
That's a good word.
So the first part, did you live? Are you living? Are you on the sidelines? The wonderful thing is when you're 74, you get to have notes. You're forgiven for not remembering everything. But I was empty. in those days. That was partly why I didn't engage, because I just felt like I had nothing to offer. I just gave to my kids, I fixed dinner, did what I knew to do, but you wouldn't have thought of me as any kind of dazzling performer or any kind of a personality kid. And at 30 years old, Jesus came into my life through a set of circumstances because I wasn't engaged. I was hurting. I was hurting a lot because I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't even feel like I mattered to my family. And in some ways I didn't matter because I was so in the background that the dominant people in our home really were the ones who were the shining ones. But one day I was just on the edge of suicide. And I sat down with my husband and I told him how I was feeling. And I kind of felt like I was hanging over the edge of a cliff by my fingernails. And he was kind of walking around the edge of the cliff making sure those fingernails didn't hang on. He didn't realize it. He didn't know where I was in my life. But I was so totally desperate and so totally empty that I didn't think I could live. So that night, when I went ready to go to sleep, I said, Lord, I want to have a conversation with you tomorrow. I'm too tired tonight, but if you'll just remind me to talk to you about my life. So I went to sleep, and the next morning I got up, got my family off to school and off to work, and went in the kitchen. I remembered I had a date. So I went in by my bed and cried out to God. This was 43 years ago. It's as real to me today as it was then.
Yeah, that's great.
I got up off my knees, a new person. Now, I know a lot of you know that experience. I mean, I know, the majority of people here have a living relationship with a living God. But I never knew, even though I'd been in church, that I would be a new person. I was on my knees, I was an old person. When I got up, I was a new person. I felt new, totally new. And I began to live. Somebody called me that day and said, what's going on? These were some people who'd been praying for me. And I said, old things are passed away and all things are become new. It's an experience. It isn't a mental assent. You are not a car because you're in a garage. You are in Jesus. You're new, you're washed, you're clean. Your mind begins to be renewed. Juggling I can't do and talk at the same time. So I began to live in a new way. My family was almost scared to death of who this person was. They didn't even want to say what's happened to you, Mom, because they couldn't relate to a person who was beginning to be alive. So the important thing was that they began to see a new spirit, a new attitude, a new wanting to